G'day and welcome to Inside Rugby. My name is Mark. I'm a Kiwi rugby fan living here in beautiful Cancun in Mexico. In this video I'm going to be talking about that game that kicked off the Six Nations competition this weekend in round 3. That was between Ireland and Wales, played in Dublin, and what a fascinating game it was. So welcome to my channel. If you've been here before and you're a regular visitor, thank you very much for watching my videos. If you're a newbie to the channel, welcome. It's great to have you here and great for you to join us in our global rugby community. Now I'm reviewing the game between Ireland and Wales that was played in Dublin on Saturday, and it was a really interesting game because I thought that going into this game, Wales had nothing to lose. They've got this young squad, inexperienced squad this year. And they've had a couple of close calls, haven't they, in their first couple of games against England and against Scotland. So it's going to be interesting to see what they did in this game against Ireland in the weekend. On the other hand, Ireland have been steamrolling it so far this year with a comprehensive win in the first game against France. And then they backed that up with a methodical win against Italy. And it was odds on again that they were going to do a similar thing to Wales this weekend. But no. So a couple of interesting things for me in this game before it got underway was going to be how Frawley played at fullback for Ireland. As I mentioned in my preview video, I haven't watched Frawley play before, so it's going to be interesting for me anyway, see how he went at fullback. And for Wales, Cottesloe was coming back in for Wales in number 10, so that was also going to be interesting to watch how he was able to managing that. Johan Lloyd was on the bench for this game for Wales. So right from the kickoff it was Ireland, and they were putting the pressure on Wales straight away, and it was a tale of the first quarter of the game really, where Ireland just had all of the possession and the territory, and it just seemed like Wales couldn't get their hand on the ball. It was just all Ireland, and it was mainly set up through their forwards. But as soon as their backs got an opportunity, they looked dangerous. They looked like they were going to penetrate the Welsh defence. And for me, it was only going to be a matter of time before Ireland started piling on the points. They were very, very impressive in that opening minutes of the game. Ireland went ahead after 6 minutes with a penalty to Jack Crowley, 3-0. And it wasn't until the 11th minute in the game that we had our first scrum. And it was going to be interesting. I talked about this in the preview video in terms of how I thought Ireland were going to dominate in set pieces. And boy, did they dominate in that first scrum. And all the ensuing scrums after that, it was just Ireland putting a lot of pressure on the Welsh forwards, and in particular that front row of Porter, Sheehan and Furlong were looking very, very good for Ireland at the start of the game. It was in that first 20 minutes that we saw a couple of standouts from Ireland. The first one was Aki, who did a great steal while Wales were having a little bit of ball, and he stole the ball at a breakdown situation and won it back for Ireland. And then a few minutes later, Porter did the same thing where he got in and made a great steal as well. And those two players were standing out early on in this game. But it was really a game where Wales were just not able to get any possession at all. And I think after the first 20 minutes or so, it was like 86% possession to Ireland. And they were just really dominating without penetrating too much and without scoring too many points early on. And I thought if there was any downside to the Irish game at that point, that they just weren't putting a lot of points on the board, but that was going to come in the game anyway. But they were building that pressure and that momentum really, really well and doing a great job, and Wales just didn't have an answer for it. Their defence wasn't able to turn over the ball, and I'm sure that's something that Warren Gatland was going to be looking for from the likes of Raffle, Wainwright and Mann, because that's what they were in this team to do. And then around the 20-minute mark we saw a series of events that led to Ireland's next set of points, and it started off in a scrum actually, and Ireland just decimated the Welsh scrum. They ended up getting a penalty from that. Crowley did a great kick for touch down the line to put Ireland just 5 metres out from the Welsh line. And it was from that ensuing line out that we saw a great rolling more pick and go from the Irish forwards, getting closer and closer to the line. And eventually Sheehan, who's been finding the try line quite a lot this year in the Six Nations, went over for another try. And it was a really, really good try to Ireland, and Crowley got the conversion. And after 20 minutes we saw Ireland in the lead by 10 points to 0, and they were really dominating the game at that stage. And I just didn't see where Wales were going to get into this game. They just weren't getting any possession at all. And then the next 10 minutes of the game, it was still Ireland. They were dominating the scrums. We saw Doris do a great pick up from the base of the scrum and go for a great run during that time. And Wales were also leaking a lot of penalties as well, so they were giving Ireland additional bonus ball by giving away those penalties. So I'm sure Warren Gatland would have been a bit worried in the stands at that stage. The first 30 minutes of the game wasn't going anyway towards Wales, and it was looking like Ireland were doing just what they wanted to do. And then they put together a lot of phases after the 30th minute mark, about 13 or 14 phases. The ball came out to James Lowe, and he went over for his 14th try for Ireland, which was a great try to Ireland at that particular time. Crowley got the conversion of Lowe's try, and we're out to 17 points to 0 to Ireland after 32 minutes of the game. And I made a note of this. I just put down that Wales were being suffocated by Ireland, and I think that's probably the description that I would give that first 30 minutes or so of the game. Wales weren't able to get into the game because Ireland were being so dominant with ball in hand, and also their defence was excellent. So on the odd opportunity that Wales had to get the ball, Ireland were up with their line speed very quickly to shut down any Wales threat at all, and they just weren't able to get any momentum into the game. So it was looking like Ireland were going to run away with this heading towards half-time. It was a pretty much one-way traffic, and pretty much like we saw the previous outing from Ireland against Italy in their game. It just was carrying on from there. Ireland continued being really impressive up until about the 37th minute, and then we had a period just before half-time where Wales got a bit of momentum in the game, and for that last 2 or 3 minutes of the first half, they showed that they could take it to Ireland. But you know, out of 40 minutes of rugby, 3 minutes is not sufficient enough, and they weren't able to score any points despite getting very, very close to the Irish line. And this was one of the things that I was really impressed with again with Ireland this week, was their defence. So when they didn't have the ball in hand, they were able to suffocate the opposition, keep them on the back foot, and not let them get any momentum or rhythm into the game. And that's what this young Welsh team was looking at trying to do, but they just weren't able to do it. So despite having that good couple of minutes before the halftime break, we saw Ireland go into the break at 17 points to 0, and I think Andy Farrell would have been really happy with the guys. I think they probably left a couple of chances out there that they could have had, but you've got to give the Welsh defence a little bit of plaudits as well, because they did play well in a couple of phases of that play against from Ireland in that first half. So I think while Andy Farrell would have been very happy at half-time with what he saw from Ireland, I think he would have wanted a little bit more in the second half, and made sure that the guys kept the focus on finishing off Wales in the second half. We've all seen what Wales were able to do against Scotland in that magical match down at Cardiff. So Farrell was probably reminding the Irish team that let's not let these guys back in the game at all. It was going to be pretty crucial who was going to score first in the second half, I thought, because if Wales did get some points on the board, it would have given them a little bit of self-belief that they might have been able to get back into this game. And if Ireland were able to score early in the second half, then they would have been able to feel as though they were going to run away with it in the second half. I think Warren Gatland would have reminded the players at half-time to get out there in the second half, enjoy themselves, have fun playing this game, even though they're under a lot of pressure from Ireland. If they did get some ball, they needed to use it, open the game up a little bit, and just see what happened, basically. I think that's what Wales were wanting to do in the second half. Well, Wales did come out fighting in the second half, and we saw for the first couple of minutes the ball going backwards and forwards between both teams, having a go at each other and running the ball at each other. It was quite intense, actually. It was quite exciting rugby there for a while. And then Wales got the ball in the 43rd minute, headed down and putting pressure on the Irish line. And they put several phases together, getting very, very close to a try. And there was an indiscretion by Ty Byrne. He was sent off with a yellow card, and Wales were awarded a penalty try. So all of a sudden, after 43 minutes, Wales were back in it, 17 points to 7. And we were wondering whether this was going to be a Welsh comeback like we saw against Scotland. Then it got scrappy for 5 minutes or so, and we saw a lot of loose play between both teams. Both teams were trying to take it to each other, but it was a bit all over the place. And the 10th minute mark, and we saw a couple of reserve changes for both teams. And the first one was Jack Conan coming on for Van der Fleer. Thought Van der Fleer played very, very well in the time that he was on the field, and him and Doris and Omani again were giving Wales a hard time around that breakdown situation. I did talk about that in the preview video, about how important that area of the game was going to be for Ireland if they were going to be successful against Wales, and they did that very, very well in that first 40 odd minutes of the game. On the Welsh side, we saw Dylan Lewis coming on for Azarati, so a change in the front row for Wales, and they were really being given a hard time from Ireland in the scrums, I thought, in this game, and the set pieces in general. Ireland looked very, very efficient. And then on the 54th minute, we saw Mackenzie Martin, the Cardiff player, come on for his first cap for Wales. Big moment in his career, and it was going to be interesting to see how he went against what at that stage was a dominating Irish pack in the game. But Wales had got the score back to 17-7. Could they push on and get the game closer as the game went on? But it was in the next few minutes that I thought was the really pivotal part of this game. Wales put together about 15 or 16 phases of play. They looked really, really good, but they ended up getting penalised for not releasing the ball. And it gave Ireland a fantastic opportunity to clear out this opportunity from their line. And it was very, very close. The Welsh got very close to the Irish line. They could have got a potential try, and at that stage we would have had the score back to 17-14. And we could have had a very different game. However, would have, could have, should have. It didn't happen. The Irish defence was excellent, kept Wales out after all those phases, and Wales ended up making their own mistake of not releasing that ball. Ireland got a turnover opportunity through a penalty and cleared the ball away from their line. As is often the case with this Irish team, they went rampaging down to the other end of the field. It looked like Bundy Archie had got over for a try, but the TMO was involved in the process, and we ended up finding out that somehow there was a knock-on the attack from the Irish players, and the try was disallowed. Now, many of you probably thought it was a try, that it was just great hands from the Irish backs. I was probably on that side. I thought there was no real indiscretion there. It was just great hands, great passing, but the TMO picked it up. The referee made the decision that there was a knock-on in or a forward pass, and the try wasn't allowed. So that would have given Ireland at that stage an opportunity to really kick out a little bit further in the game as well. So a big moment around that 60th minute mark where Wales had an opportunity to score, they didn't. Ireland had an opportunity to score, they didn't, and the game pressed on from there. We headed into the last 20 minutes of this game, and I thought Wales were playing a lot better in the second half. They were getting more ball, they were being a bit more creative, they were loosening up the game a bit. But the one thing that stuck out for me was the Irish defence. Every time Wales had an opportunity, and even though they did a lot of different phases of play, the Irish defence stayed really, really firm, and it was going to take a couple of pieces of genius, I thought, from Wales to give them an opportunity to get back into this game. But I didn't know where it was going to happen. We saw a couple of good things from Thomas Williams. We saw Rio Dyer doing a good kick and chase, and it was those kinds of players that I think Wales were really going to depend on to get themselves back into this game that was happening. But the Irish defence right across the board was really good. We saw some big hits by their forwards. Porter was getting involved. We also saw Doris doing a really good couple of tackles. I saw Conan, when he came on as well, being great in defence when Wales were having a lot of different series of play. But also in the backs, we saw Henshaw and Archie being really good in defence this weekend as well, again. And that's one thing that Ireland keeps stepping up to, is their resilience in their defence, which is very, very good. And then around the 67th minute mark, we saw another Irish attack towards the Welsh line. And this was really the difference between the teams, because when Ireland got an opportunity to get points when they were down inside the Welsh 22, they went ahead and did it. And that man Frawley at fullback, who was getting over for his first try for Ireland in an international test match, which was a great thing for him, basically ran through a non-existent Welsh defence at the time, and it was just showing of a capitulation of Wales in that defensive pattern where Ireland were not making those mistakes. So as I said, every time Ireland seemed to go down into the Welsh 22, they came away with points, and that was the case again in this situation. It was a good conversion for Crowley, and before we knew it, we had Ireland out to 24 points to 7. By the time we reached the 70-minute mark, we had Ireland having 700 metres gained in this match versus Wales' 398. So that really showed, I think, in terms of when Ireland did get the ball, they were very explosive with it. They were able to put pressure on Wales, get down into their territory, and when they did, they were just successful in getting points, and that was really the tale of the game. Irish discipline fell off a little bit in the second half. We saw a couple of scrappy things, and I think that's Andy Farrell will be saying something about that to the team in the debrief during the week, is to try and maintain that discipline for 80 minutes It can be costly if it's a closer game, as we know, but on this occasion there was probably no chance that Wales were going to get back into it in the last 10 minutes of this game. As we headed into the last 10 minutes, Johan Lloyd came on for Wales. Costello went off. Thought he played reasonably well for Wales without getting too much of the ball to set the back line online, but when Wales did put all those phases of play together, it was a result of Costello distributing the ball in a good way and keeping his team going forward. It was just that they were up against a great Irish defence on this particular day. Wales went back onto attack again, and they were really putting some pressure on Ireland in that last 5 or 6 minutes of the game. Got within 2 metres of the line, but weren't able to get over. But from that play, we saw the discipline drop off from Ireland, and Ryan got a yellow card and sent to the bin. He wasn't going to come back on the field again in this particular game. And then Wales kept attacking again in that last few minutes. Wainwright actually got over the line. The ball was deemed to be held up, and there was no points awarded to Wales on that particular occasion. But Ireland were going to have the last say in this game. In the last minute, they took off downfield and put on a great attack. And it was that man, Ty Byrne, that went over for a great try. He went through a gap, non-existent Welsh defence, basically. And it was an easy 7 points for Ireland to end this game on. So the final score in the game was Ireland 31, Wales 7, and another very, very good win by Ireland, I thought. 39 wins out of their last 41 games in Dublin, a fantastic statistic for Ireland. And of course, this was their 18th consecutive win in a row as well. So you can't really put too much against this Irish team. They're playing great rugby at the moment. And what really stood out for me this weekend was their resilience right across the field. I thought their forwards, all of their forwards played really, really well, except for Porter, who had a bit of a brain fade at one stage taking on Davies. And I don't know how that didn't end up with at least a penalty. He was playing the player without the ball. It was right in front of the referee, but nothing was done about it. So an indiscretion from Porter, who was a bit hot-headed in that moment. We didn't need that in the game. Ireland didn't need that in the game. They were playing well enough without that going on. But across the rest of the field, I thought Sheehan had another good game for Ireland this weekend. Conan was really good when he came on for Van der Fleer. But it was that back three of Van der Fleer, O'Mahony and Doris that were really playing fantastic in winning that breakdown ball, which was quite decisive, particularly in that first half for Ireland, which I thought was really significant in this game. But Gibson Park had a good game. Crowley was good again, good off the tee as well. Made some good kicking choices when he had to. Archie was huge both on attack and in defence again this weekend. He ended up getting player of the match for the broadcasters this weekend and probably deserved that. Henshaw was good as well. And James Lowe, Frawley played well at fullback, and Nash had a good game as well. So right across the park, I thought Ireland were really, really good. Deserved the win, of course, 31 points to 7. And they'll steamroll on as they've got to play England and Scotland now to end up this Six Nations campaign. From the Wales point of view, well, I'm not getting too upset with this team because I think they're learning a lot as they go ahead. And as I said in my very early videos before the Six Nations got underway, I thought Warren Gatland's going to be using this campaign to give this young, inexperienced team an opportunity to play against these great teams in Europe and just see how well they're going. And I think they're putting up a pretty good account for themselves. Despite the scoreline, Wales came out in that second half and they gave it a go, and that's all you can ask from this young team. They weren't clinical enough to get those points that they needed to get that game back to 17-14, which would have been a crucial period of the game around the 50th minute mark. But it was Ireland going on and being able to do exactly that. They were clinical and they were able to put Wales away. They might have had another try or two as well. So I don't think the scoreboard flattered Ireland at all in this game. I think it was a pretty fair representation. I said before the game that Ireland were going to score in the 30s again. They did that. They've been consistently doing that throughout the Six Nations campaign, and I would expect them to do that again in their next game. So we'll have to wait and see how they go. But I think Warren Gatland can be pleased with elements of what this team's doing. They've got to get better in the forwards and getting set piece of play, and that's something they're going to have to focus on. I think in a losing team, Cameron Winnett had a really good game. This guy's growing on me. He's playing better and better each game we see him. He was involved in a lot of high ball collection this weekend. He did that very, very well. Got a bad head knock towards the end of the game, but he kept plugging away. And he was one of the standouts for Wales as well for me. Thomas Williams played well, I thought. Costello was steady without being brilliant, and we didn't see anything different from Johan Lloyd when he came on for the last 10 minutes. So Wales still looking for that dynamic play around the 9 and 10 situation that's going to give their backs a good chance. We saw George North in a couple of breaks for Wales when they were putting those multiple phases of play together, so he was looking good there, and Rio Dyer did a couple of good runs as well without scoring any of his customary dangerous tries that he can do. So again, across the board for Wales, good without being great, but another learning curve for them to go away from this particular game with. So let me know in the comments what you thought of this game between Ireland and Wales. Do you think Ireland are going to go on now and win the Grand Slam? They're looking very impressive, aren't they? I'm not sure who's going to be able to score enough points against this Irish team to be able to take it with them, but we're going to have to wait and see with what England and Scotland are going to have to come up with. And what do you think about Wales? Do you think they're going to go on and get a couple of wins from their remaining games, or do you think they're going to find it tough as they continue their campaign with this young and inexperienced team across the Six Nations? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm going to be back with more videos soon right here on Inside Rugby, so if you're enjoying my comment, hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and I will thank you very much for that in advance. Until next time, stay well, stay safe everybody, and I'll see you again really soon right here on Inside Rugby. Until then, it's time to say adios from beautiful Mexico. Bye for now.